Recently there's been a lot of talk about the new evangelization, and a lot of us will think about, well, what does that mean exactly? Well, in this month's Magnificat, which is a great publication, if you don't subscribe to it, I certainly recommend it. There's these little articles in there, and there's in this month's Magnificat, there is an article in there written by Father Raymond de Souza, who's a Canadian priest. Actually, he and I studied together in the seminary. He's a journalist as well as a priest. But he wrote this real neat article about saints and the new evangelization. And I just wanted to share with you one saint that I think really exemplifies what we are doing at Christ the King. What does it mean to be a Eucharistic parish? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? And this saint is St. Philip Neary. If you don't know much about St. Philip Neary, he's an extraordinary saint of the Church. They call him the second apostle of Rome. He was actually from Florence originally, but he spent most of his life in Rome. And this was at a time after the Council of Trent and the need for reform in the church. There's a lot of people that were, would identify themselves as Catholic, but they didn't have this transformative relationship with Jesus. And St. Philip Neary went about this great kind of new evangelization in Rome. And it was even said by one of his biographers, he says, when Philip went to Rome, they said that the Roman Curia was incapable of reform, and when he had died, it was an accomplished fact. Beautiful, of what one man's impact had. And what Father de Souza said about St. Philip Neary, about the new evangelization, he says this, he says, Philip's pastoral approach is familiar enough today in places where the new evangelization has taken root. Here's how he describes it. Christian fellowship in small groups. Christian fellowship in small groups. Special concern for young people. An emphasis on confession and spiritual direction. The building up of liturgical culture. And careful attention to sacred music and art. And when I read that, I thought, that's kind of like what we're doing here at Christ the King. And so we can kind of, in a way, St. Philip Neary has kind of made himself known to us, is that his pastoral approach in the new evangelization is something that we have a real affinity with, because a lot of these things is what we're doing here, right? This careful attention to sacred music and art, right, which elevates the soul, opens the soul to beauty and to the one who is the origin of all beauty, our Lord himself. The liturgical culture, right? The Eucharist is the source and summit of the Christian life. That everything that who we are, and everything that all of our activity flows from the Mass and comes back to the Mass. And an emphasis on confession and spiritual direction. Right? You've heard it from me probably more times than you will care to hear about how important it is to go to confession, because I know it's the transformative experiences it's had in my life. And as well as spiritual direction, because people are seeking a deeper spiritual life. It's not enough just to know the truths of the faith. It's about how do we have a heart for Christ and to know him, to be in relationship with him, and that deepening relationship, which is always ongoing. And then special concern for young people, right? Of building up our school, again, is always the primary arm of evangelization in our parish. Our middle school and high school youth programs, our young adult Forsati group, which is really starting to get traction now, and then Christian fellowship in small groups. Right? We've got to know each other. We've got to spend time together. We've got to talk about the important things, and we'll have coming up a whole mode of being parishioners at Christ the King in a small group. And focused on a particular aspect of the faith that we can learn more about and talk about. So these are the kind of things that we're doing here at Christ the King, and if you want a kind of a fuller vision of what a Eucharistic parish means, St. Philip Neary is showing us the way. Christian fellowship in small groups, special concern for young people, an emphasis on confession and spiritual direction, the building up of liturgical culture, and careful attention to sacred music and art.